What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of All Things Super. I am one of your hosts, Spider, and with me once again
You
is the
all right?
Cheese Master, Mr. VIP Frank Washington. How are you doing today, sir?
I am infinitely awesome. Na, na,
There
na,
it is.
na. Oh man. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Happy to be back again. I feel like it's been a while since we've done this.
Been a
And
long time.
realistically, it's only been like a week and a half.
Shouldn't have left you without a dope. That's enough. That's enough.
Timberland gonna come and get you.
That's why I
DMCA.
stopped. I don't want no problems with no people.
Take down my
Yeah, man,
video.
it's your favorite. It's the favorite part of the YouTube and wherever you get your podcast is from.
Right.
That's how we do it now. So
That's
wherever
how we
you
do
get
it.
your stuff from, this is your favorite part. You click the link, you click the button, you click the thumbnail to see us. Yay.
That yay sounded so unenthusiastic.
What? That was the most passionate yay you heard today. Well, take
You're
that
not
back.
wrong.
I don't, okay.
You're not wrong. I don't come across too many on a daily basis, so.
Yay.
But if you didn't know, this is All Things Super, where every week we take a piece of superpower, TV shows, movies, even trailers. We watch them, we react to them, we break them down, we review them, and we ask the question, is it super?
Is it
Is it?
super?
Maybe.
It's,
It might be.
if you think about it, really, is it though?
You got to consider it. But if you like that, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes that come out. If you want the audio version of the podcast, just search for All Things Super on your favorite podcast streaming platform. And if you want to follow us on social media, just click the link in the description below.
And leave a comment so we can read that thing. If you follow me on social anything, I'm sorry. I ain't no telling what you do. Just let you know right now. You can follow me, but I, it's like this show. Anything could go on.
Just beware. We'll give you that disclaimer. Just
I'm
know what you're
apologizing
getting
now.
yourself into.
There you
Don't
go.
apologize.
You can always unfollow,
That is true.
but
That
then
is
you're gonna
absolutely
miss
true.
out.
Exactly. How
You're
long are
gonna
you
have
gonna
to
let
hear
that
about it.
FOMO take control of your life?
Ooh, FOMO is real. I seen him out the block playing basketball.
Playing basketball.
Yeah, it was all in the faces of the people that was standing in line talking about we got next. They was missing out. They're
They
ready
were
though. They
missing out.
ready. They ready.
But for this episode, we are discussing the first two episodes of the brand new Disney Plus show, season 2 of
Dose.
Loki.
Dose.
The first
Like
Marvel
dose
Disney
dose.
Plus show to get a second season.
Uh you know what? I know I said this earlier. I'm just gonna say it again. Loki here to save the multiverse. You see, and the MCU as a whole. He is the new Iron Man. And that's not just me saying that. Go
Mm-hmm.
back and look at the symbolisms that they put in season one. How he landed in the desert, landed just like Tony Stark. How he, had to redeem himself. He had to look at his life. He had the same thing about Tony Stark. He had the vision about all the Avengers dying. He had to put a suit of armor around the world.
Right.
So now Loki is trying to protect the multiverse in the sense of, it's the lesser of all evils if it's controlled this way, but maybe different. I mean, he is the god of mischief. If the god of mischief has to be at the end of time, creating timelines, you're gonna have a mischievous life.
I mean, is he,
mischief, sorry.
I mean, even though he's still the god of mischief, given the past two seasons of Loki, he hasn't really been incredibly mischievous. I feel like he's been
Nope.
he's always had this mantra of being burdened with glorious purpose, right? And so everything that he's been wanting to achieve up to this point, well, to the point to where we saw in the first season of Loki, where he was basically plucked from the timeline and
Right.
now he's working in conjunction with the TVA, and he's finding about the different, timelines and different variants and all this other kind of stuff. And for the most part, I feel like this glorious purpose that he felt that he's been burdened by, I don't know if it was because he saw himself, he saw the life that the life that he would have had, on that
Mm-hmm.
timeline, and that may have shifted something in him. Because we know in
Of
the first season,
course.
he and Sylvie had that conversation. It's like, we're Loki's. Are we just destined to lose? Are we destined to fail at every turn? And I really feel like here in the second season, even though we're only a couple episodes in, we can see a different Loki.
Loki.
It's almost like this is main character Loki. Like all of the
Mm-hmm.
other Avenger movies and Thor movies, we've gotten like supporting actor Loki, supporting character Loki. But in
Mm-hmm.
this show, I'm guessing because it's more now that he's driving the story versus reacting to it, because in the first season is basically, oh well, we don't know if he's playing the TVA just because he's trying to get free, or if he's playing the TVA because he knows that they're chasing after a variant of him, so he wants to work with the variant. We had all of these unknowns
Mm-hmm.
going into the season. But now here in season two, when we see like at the end of season one, we get the emotional standoff between Loki and Sylvie, where Sylvie, blasts him through the time door and blasts him back to
That
the
happened.
TVA.
Ooh, that happened too.
And the knowledge that he has about He Who Remains and what that means for the TVA, now that the sacred timeline is all kinds of, fucked up. Now we have a Loki whose objective is to save people, which is not a Loki that we've seen before up to this point.
No, we only seen this compassionate side of Loki when he was with his mother.
Right.
That's when we saw this side. And this side is now on the forefront. Shout out to Tom for being able to, when you said we saw a supporting character, excuse me, when you said
Getting
we
choked
saw a
up about it
supporting,
already.
I'm all worked up, Spider. I don't understand why we got here, but we here because we had some stumbles, MCU. We had a lot of them. We had a lot of stumbles.
Yeah, we're
Now
a
we
lot.
here. So when we see Loki being vulnerable like this, well, again, shout out to Tom for being able to show that. But when you said earlier about we seeing supporting acting, shout out to Tom again for knowing how to dial it down and then how to turn it on and dial it down and not steal the scene, and then give your co-partner a chance, an opportunity to have the scene just just mm,
Yeah.
you want to take time and acknowledge stuff like that. So now that he's a driving force, again, he's he is the linchpin in all of the multiverse saga. Doctor Strange is in there somewhere, but we'll get to Doctor Strange at a certain point.
Right.
But he's the linchpin. He is who we're gonna follow through this multiversal incursion. Muck up my words. How will Jumbo make up words?
Because I mean, technically, he was the one that kind of kicked the whole thing off.
Right. And we had
Without
to
without
wait.
Loki season one, we really wouldn't have this MCU multiverse.
No. Well, yes, but no.
Right.
For those who don't get it at home, King was still in
Right.
control of, or he who remains would still be in control of the timeline. So here's the thing, Strider, and I wanted to talk to you about this because y'all know we get deep on this show.
Right.
It's clear that he who remains has a plan, kind of like a backdoor, to ensure that he who remains will remain again and again and again and again and again and again and again, like Morpheus said, because that's the way it happens in the sacred timeline. It happens again and again and again and again
Right.
because it's
Time as a
scripted
flat
that
circle.
way.
Yeah.
It's scripted that way. So, but you got to think about it. All these certain series of events would have to happen for a king to be, or that king to be victorious.
Right.
There's a bunch of them. So how do you ensure that you get back to where you? I mean, that's gonna be reversed. You're gonna be that to the soul season one and two. So Cain is obviously gonna be reborn through Reed Richards because he's a descendant of Reed Richards.
Right.
Living again in the canon or the whatever you want to anchoring certain point in time in Marvel comics. They're not getting rid of Reed Richards, so Kane's
No.
always going to be there. Uh, Practical reasons, Reed Richards mean too much to the multiverse than to ever extinguish him. So if that's the storyline, y'all could run with it. It's not going to be a good outcome. I can promise you that. Reed Richards is deemed what, the smartest man in the MCU. If not, he's up there.
Yeah.
It's him. It's Tony. It's T'Challa. This genius level of intellect.
Right.
So Kane's coming. He's gonna get reborn in time. So I'm saying, this is a question. This is a question I want to ask.
Mm-hmm.
In his infinite plan of rebirthing himself back to the top, do you think Loki is going to allow him to come back on top or take over? Because we've already seen him win. Season one, when they got to the end of time in the Citadel, he who remains is there.
Right.
He won already the last multiversal war. So he probably won the multiversal war before then. Or before then. This is not the first one. He just ensured, because here's the question. When Loki and Sylvie were coming up in the elevator, Sylvie tried to stab he who remains. She tried to cut him, but stab him. But he used the time remix switchy thing to get out the way.
Right.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he didn't know she was going to stab him.
Did he?
No clue.
Are you sure?
Huh? Unless he
Can you be sure?
Got stabbed before. So who's to say this is the first time Sylvie and Loki made it to the end of the Citadel? They could have made it there again. This is wild.
I mean, because they went into the Citadel, and in the entire explanation, He Who Remains was he basically showed them everything that you've said, everything that you've done to get you to this point. I have paved the way for you to do it. And he showed them the script of the thing that they were saying in that moment. So I have no doubts that he knew it was going to happen. He knew that she was going to try to stab him. He knew that she was going to stab him at the end, which is why when she plunged the sword into him, the last thing he said to her was "See you soon," because he knows what's going to happen. He knows the ramifications of Sylvie killing him as He Who Remains. But as far as will Loki allow him to get back on top, I don't know if in the show we'll see that happen. We'll get to the point to where we get to the multiversal war, because I think the multiversal war is going to be where we get the Kang Dynasty, we get Secret Wars. So that'll be then. And for whatever combination of superheroes we get at that point, I do think that Loki may be a part of it, because he will be the one.
An Avenger?
I mean, essentially, yeah. But he, like you said, he's the linchpin of the whole thing. He's the linchpin of the whole multiverse saga. Because as of right now, what did Doctor Strange say? The multiverse is something that we know frighteningly little of. Doctor Strange doesn't know anything about the multiverse. Doctor Strange doesn't know anything about variants. He just so happened to be in a different universe where he saw, a variant of Mortal where he was the Sorcerer Supreme, but he was only the Sorcerer Supreme because they had already had to kill Doctor Strange. But he's not knowledgeable of it, so somebody has to be able to sort of debrief everybody else on exactly what's going on. Because even with Ant-Man, Ant-Man is faced off against a Kang, but it wasn't a multiversal type thing. It was sort of a multi-dimensional type thing going
Mm-hmm.
into, the microverse.
Quantum. Yeah.
And so they didn't have to really deal with variants per se, because when he was trying to retrieve the core, it wasn't really variants of himself in a multiversal aspect. It was more of a, I feel like a psychological dimensional aspect, because it wasn't necessarily real, but it was that he was so small, and the energy that the core was giving off was causing himself to split into different variants of himself. So it's not like he met a female Ant Man or a female Scott Lang, or like Loki has a female Sylvie, or a female
Right.
Loki is Sylvie, and different. We saw the
And
different
Gator
President
Loki,
Loki,
Kid
Gator
Loki.
Loki, Kid Loki, right? So we didn't see all of those different type of variants in that sense in Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but there's going to have to be somebody that's there to be able to say, this is what's happening, this is what's going to happen to the timeline, and this is what's going to happen to the universe if we don't stop him. But do I think that he's going to let him be on top, sort of to have a he who remains kind of be at the end of time all over again? At the end of the day, no, I don't think they will. I think that it's going to end up being a result that shows different universes converging on each other. And like we were saying, that's how we'll get, 20th Century Fox coming into the MCU with Fantastic Four and X-Men and Silver Surfer, Galactus, Deadpool, all of them, having them get pulled in some kind of way, with the different universes kind of combining into one. That's how we'll get all of these different characters to be a part of the MCU. And I don't
Is
think
that what
that they
we're
can
rooting for?
allow He Who
Is
Remains
that what
to
we're
succeed.
cheering for?
I
So
think
who's going to
so.
be his successor?
I don't think there's going to be a success. I don't think there's going to be someone who's at the end of time and who's dictating everything. I don't. I think that the end goal is for the universe to move beyond that.
Ooh, how meta is that?
I mean, and if anything, it may be the the end goal for the MCU may be to just operate in different universes instead of bringing, X-Men and everybody down to Earth 1999 or 616 or whatever they
Six
want
one
to call it.
six.
You know, I mean, they've called it both.
They
so
have
so whatever you want to call it, instead of
838
bringing
somewhere out there too.
all of the all of the characters into one universe, and then, because I mean, the whole problem with having all of your superheroes in one universe, right, is, okay, we have this big thing going on in New York. Sinister Six is attacking New York, right? Avengers are based out of New York. Luke Cage, Daredevil, all of the Defenders are based out of New York. Why is it that Spider Man is fighting all of these villains by himself, right? You have
Right,
all these other
right.
superheroes in New York, even like not
That's the
even just the
biggest
main
thing
main
for the
Avengers.
connected universe.
You
Yep.
have all of these people there, but they don't show up, and it begs the question as to why don't they show up? But if you have a 616 where Spider-Man is there, you have Earth 1999 where the Avengers are based out of New York, you have Earth 97 where the X-Men are, or just you, kind of the way that DC does it with, Earth 1, Earth 2, and all this other kind of stuff. You have different Earths, and you can have maybe a way to dimension hop if you want to do, an ensemble movie, or you just keep them separate. We have an X-Men universe where mutants are already in existence, and they don't necessarily have to, team up with the Avengers until it's
No,
absolutely
sir,
necessary.
Spider. No, sir. It's all connected.
It is all
It's
connected, but it's
all
all
connected.
connected. It's all connected into one existence. It's the existence of the MCU. And so now we don't just have the Marvel Cinematic Universe being focused on one universe, because right now we're in a multiverse, right? So we're not just focused on one universe anymore. So moving forward, the more characters you introduce, the more crowded your universe is going to get. So if you don't separate it out, then it's just going to be, like I said, you're going to have the questions of to why we have superheroes here now, but they don't show up any other time. Like this is a world-ending threat. With the whole thing with the Eternals, you have a celestial coming out of the ocean, right?
We
About
don't talk
to
about that.
literally destroy the
We don't talk
planet,
about that. We only
and
make little small bulletins about that. We
it's
don't talk
not
about that.
mentioned by any other MCU character. Like
It's like
nobody says anything
Bruno.
about
It's like Bruno. It's like
it.
Bruno.
But I mean, that's the problem that you run into is because
No,
it's still.
Spider. What you're explaining is when you have all your toys put away in your toy box to
Mhm.
have it compartmentalized and everything. What we're talking about is taking that toy box and dumping it over and having all those toys all over the floor.
And then
And you
what do
got to
you
play with
get when you
all
do
of them.
that? A big fucking mess.
Well,
And that's what Disney Plus has
that's what the
been.
MCU is.
That's what Disney Plus has been for the MCU shows. And I kind of mentioned this before we started recording. The thing about it is, what has come out, it's been reported that the last, after WandaVision and after Loki, after Marvel saw the initial success of those two shows,
Uh-huh.
they got so full of themselves. They were like, you know what, we got this.
Mm.
So they started producing their shows without a showrunner. They didn't have anybody there to kind of, hold the continuity together. They had nobody there to direct the, direction of the show, because all of these different shows, they have different directors every episode, right? So you
Mm.
have these different directors, they have different visions about what the, who the characters are, what direction they want them to go in. One episode, this character is like really intense. The next episode, this character is kind of, sullen and, downtrodden and not very
Right. Right.
expressive, and because you
Mm.
didn't have anybody to tie it all together. And they also, every time that they felt that something didn't work, it's not that they would do rewrites, they would just do reshoots.
Mm.
They would shoot an episode, they look at it like, oh, okay, well, this doesn't kind of work right, so let's go back and reshoot it. And
Right.
so you have all of these
That's
things
how,
like we
that's
saw.
how Captain America end up on the moon.
This is how he ended up on the moon. But you get things that are kind of so disjointed because you don't have a concise storyline that they're following, which is what the Infinity Saga did. Kevin Feige
Mm.
had a vision of how he wanted these movies to progress to get up to Infinity War, to get up to Endgame. But now they feel like they're so untouchable at this point to where they think they can just say, oh, okay, well, we have this character, this is their powers, this is their story. Let's go ahead and adapt this into a show, let's adapt this into a movie, and then they just throw it out there. If something doesn't work, oh, let's just reshoot it. And so we get this kind of mess where we only get 6 episodes of a show, 8 episodes of a show. Everything is all over the place, and then on the last episode, they try to throw it all into a bucket and just say, okay, well, now it's done. And
Here's
so,
what I think, Spider.
mm-hmm.
I think they did it all on purpose.
Do you?
I think after the amazing box office that they had with the combination of Infinity War, Captain Marvel, Endgame,
Mm-hmm.
3, 6, you know, it's a billion apiece. Uh, I think they took liberties to not be cocky, but experiment with some things. Literally take their toys and dump them all over the floor. Because if you remember phase one, phase two, by extension, even phase three, before infamous phase four,
Right.
Marvel wasn't batting 1,000. They still had some flops in those lineups.
Yeah.
Thor the Dark World was probably revered as one of the worst MCU movies.
Yeah.
Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2 did not just, they weren't billion. They were close. They were up there, but they weren't billion-dollar movies. I mean, Captain America, definitely Captain America Winter Soldier. Iron Man 1, people feel some kind of way about Iron Man 2. Iron Man 3 is probably the weakest one out of the bunch. So those movies weren't doing well. But what happened was you had a sleeper hit in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
And you did not expect the cultural shift that came out when Black Panther dropped. Chadwick Boseman annihilated that role. So again, outside of outside of the story you were telling, because you ain't had enough faith to pull that in, but it stood alone by itself. Maybe that was
Yeah.
the thing Ryan Coogler shot for. Wakanda Forever 2 still kind of standalones outside of the timeline.
Right.
But
Because other than what, other than them going and seeing Ross, there's really not much of a connection to the larger MCU.
exactly.
Because I
They
mean,
kind of doing
even
their
with the
own little
first
thing.
one, you didn't really get a larger connection to the MCU until the post credit scene where we find out that Bucky's in Wakanda.
Exactly. But here's the thing. They knew after that big thing, I kid you not. I think the intentions was 100% to put the linchpin in Mr. Chadwick Boseman, and his untimely passing was something that they had to adjust with. They had to reshuffle business wise. So they didn't have that opportunity. So they were looking for the character that they can continue the story with. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity to introduce you to your new characters.
Mm-hmm.
So we get Werewolf by Night. We get what's the
Moon
young
Knight,
lady with the
Miss Marvel.
well, no, the Bloodstone.
Oh,
Miss
Elsa.
Marvel, Elsa, yes. Miss Marvel, you get Moon Knight. Who else we got? Echo,
Mm-hmm.
we got She-Hulk. We got a lot of new characters. We got Scar. We got almost all the young Avengers, at least by name. We got the Wanda's kids. We got Patriot. We got Kate Bishop. Um, we also got
Stature
Yelena.
and Cassie Lang.
Throwing these new. Did Marvel looks at overall picture, not really necessarily. Kind of like how Kevin said in the She-Hulk. Some will do well, some won't. But
Right.
overall, they're telling more of a story because it's like we don't really care about these characters. Not saying that they don't, but for the ones that y'all don't like, general public, they probably won't make it once the universes collide, once the incursions happen. We got to have somebody to take off the board so you can feel the emotional states. But if you're killing off characters nobody care about, you're gonna care about him. Well, Moon Knight probably ain't gonna die because he can't die. But characters like Echo, you might, Agatha, you might feel some kind of way. You want to root for them to come back, but they're gone because the villains, the bad people, they ain't really trying to kill off these heroes.
Well, I
These
mean,
heroes make money.
Echo's technically a hero, and
And,
Agatha isn't
and you seen what
necessarily
they
a
did with her
villain
show.
either. I mean, that show's still coming out.
Everybody can't be a hero. We need villains to make the
No,
story work.
I do agree that we do need villains, but I mean,
So Loki's crossing over. Loki's not a villain anymore.
no.
They're not gonna let him do anything villainy. He's gonna do questionable things that'll make you wonder if he's gonna do it. Let's get again. When we saw Loki cut loose and use his powers, he could have easily grabbed this guy and killed him,
He could have.
choked him out. But he toyed with him. He played with him. He wasn't even running behind him. He was walking. It's like, come on,
Well,
man.
he did run after him, and I was telling Michelle, I was like, "This is the first time that I ever seen. I would have never imagined that I would have seen Loki running after someone in pursuit of them, because that's just not his style."
Exactly. But he's
But
not
like I
going to do
say,
anything to
it's a
hurt
it's a
anybody.
different Loki. and he's
He's only
motivated.
gonna hurt villains.
Right. But he's motivated now, like I said, no longer by his own self interest. Now he has, he's looking at the bigger picture. He's trying to save, existence. He's trying to get back to Sylvie. And so this is something that's really important to him. And so he's gonna chase after X5 or Brad. But one of the things that I enjoy about Loki season 2 is what one of the lines that we got in the second episode where Loki is talking to Mobius and they're in the automat, they're eating pie, and Loki admits that when he led the Chitauri to New York, it wasn't because his ambition was to rule over Earth. That was, Thanos and the other, that was what they wanted, and Loki was the means to an end. What he was doing was that he was just lashing out at Odin and at Thor because
I know that.
he was upset. He was hurt because you remember the last time we saw Loki before the first Avengers movie was at the end of Thor. He was hanging on the
That's right.
Bifrost. The Bifrost
That's
broke and
true.
he just kind of fell into nothingness. And so he never really got his sort of emotions resolved in that moment because he was tired of living in Thor's shadow. He felt like he was ignored by who he thought was his father. He finds out that he's not even Asgardian, he's a Jotun,
Mm.
and he's been lied to his entire
Mm.
life. And so after
Not
all of
even
that,
know
you have
this.
this big fight with your brother, and he
House.
wants you to, come home, like, come be a part of the family again. And Loki's like, this is not my family. So he falls out
Right.
into space, and then he comes back, and how better to get back at his brother than to destroy the planet that he loves, right?
Mm.
So it's not about taking over Earth. It's not about subjugating the humans on the planet. It's
It's
about
him to
destroying
destroy.
something. Yeah, it's about destroying something that Thor cared about. And
Mm-hmm.
being able to hear Loki articulate that, it just, and this is why I keep saying that this is not the same Loki that we're used to seeing, and this is just showing you that this is not the same Loki because Loki from Avengers would never admit that what he was doing was because he felt hurt. It was because he felt lied to and he wanted to get back at the people that hurt him. And this
No, that
is
that Loki take people eyes out
exactly.
and
bodies,
smile
bodies,
about it.
body slam them on the table, take their eyes out. He
Stab his
attempted
brother in the side. Talk
uh,
about sentiment.
attempted to kill Thor and dropped him in the cell. He was like, most people think us gods, but are we immortal? Let's find out. He just dropped him out, not knowing whether or not Thor was going to live or die. But after everything,
Ain't that
even though,
crazy? Hey, well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was thinking
mhm,
about that exact scene just the other day. That cage was meant for the Hulk.
right.
Thor busted out of there.
Well, he also had Mjolnir too.
I don't think that cage would have held the Hulk at all. I
I
don't think
mean, but you think about it
when
because
he hit the glass with Mjolnir, it cracked. The
right.
glass cracked. Didn't open, but it did crack. And then he used all his force to go through the glass.
But you also saw that Thor laid Hulk out with Mjolnir too.
I seen Hulk get up.
I mean, I'm not saying that he wasn't going to get up, but he did knock him down. And here's the thing. So we know that Nick Fury is a spy of spies, and he had Shield build this cage
Is
for
he?
Hulk.
Is he
He
at the secret
was. He
invasions? I don't
was.
know.
And when we're talking about 2012 Nick Fury. We're talking about
Okay,
2012 Nick Fury, not 2023
when
Nick
we
Fury.
didn't when we didn't know the flirking scratch his eye.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, we
I
didn't know
got
that
you.
he got scratched in the eye by Flurkin. But
He was badass then.
yeah, so but of course, you only have so much knowledge of what the Hulk is capable of because I don't think that anybody really understands the capacity of the angrier the Hulk gets, the stronger he gets. So you put him
Right.
in any type of cage, he gets frustrated enough, yeah, he's gonna break out regardless. I don't think that the cage was meant as a way to imprison the Hulk, and the whole drop was a means of trying to kill him. I think that the cage was a deterrent to keep Bruce from becoming the Hulk. And because, I mean, the thing about it is, if he turned into the Hulk on the helicarrier, there was no way that they were going to get him in the cage anyway. But even if he was in the cage and they dropped him, I think it was just a method of getting him out of the helicarrier without him causing too much destruction. That's what I think the
Makes
whole
sense.
purpose of it was for. But the
Hmm.
thing about it is that it's funny because we saw our Loki, the original Loki, I'll say, kind of go through the whole progression. He got beat in New York, so they brought him back to Asgard. The trolls, well, not the trolls, the Dark Elves came in, end up killing Frigga, and we saw the emotion that Loki showed when he heard that she was killed, right? And we get through all of this, the story arc of him taking Odin's place and acting as if he was Odin and becoming the king of Asgard, and and Thor coming back, and we get the whole thing of them and Sakaar and their whole relationship, and at the beginning of Infinity War, so we have this whole emotional arc for Loki that we see, and we see why at the end of that Loki's life. We see that he's come to terms with being a part of Thor's family. He calls himself Odin's son. He's not Loki's son. You know, so we see that natural progression as to
Get
how
choked
he
up
got
again,
there.
Spider. Get choked up again.
But we see that progression of how he got there. And even though this Loki that we see in the show, he only got to like rewatch all of that happen. But even still, at the end of the day, he became this better version of himself, or this more, I should say, kinder version of himself. So it just kind of goes to show you that even though he was an asshole, he was murderous, he was, doing all of these villainous things, at his core, whether it was a Loki that lives all the way throughout 2023, or, well, 2019, no, 20, because yeah, 2019, because they snapped and came back in 2025, I think. So something around that time. But that Loki that we got all the way up to 2019, and how he was emotionally when he was killed by Thanos. And even now we got this Loki that was plucked out of 2012 before he went through all of that. Still at this point, now he's, more emotionally mature and like more willing to open up to people, like him just sitting there talking to Mobius and actually like interested in that conversation, asking Mobius, did you ever think about who you were? What life you could have had? And Mobius like, no, it never bothered me. And Loki was like, well, you could have had a life. Like
Oh,
he's
sure he did.
trying to express to Mobius, like there are so many things that you possibly could have done that you'll never know if you had the opportunity to do. And you might think that that might be like some of part of a regret from Loki, because he may be thinking now there's so many more things that I could have done with Thor, with my mom. I could have lived my life a different way to where I didn't get put into this situation. Like all the different variants. He was President Loki, Kid Loki, all of these other different Lokis lived their lives different ways to bring them to, a certain point. So I'm wondering if at some point Loki is just like, well, what could I have been? Who could I have been had I not been on, so hell bent on trying to prove myself to
These
show that
goddamn
I was,
stones.
and all of that other kind of stuff.
Paperweight.
So it's something to, it's definitely interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of this season, because like we talked about with Secret Invasion, how I was saying that Secret Invasion was the only MCU show that I watched that I was not excited going week to week to get to the next episode. I wasn't looking forward to the next
Oh
episode.
wow.
We
Oh
watched
wow.
it because I'm still interested in where the story is going and what,
Wow.
they're trying to tell. You don't say wow like you haven't heard me say this already.
This guy here, man.
But
Don Cheadle,
Loki has brought me
Samuel
back.
L. Jackson,
I mean, it's not about the actors, it's about the story. If the story's not good, you can have a
Eddie
whole
Meadows,
cast of Academy Award winners. They could be the best
Olivia.
actors in the game. And it doesn't matter because if the story that they're trying to tell is trash, they can expertly act out trash and the story is still going to be bad. The show is still going to be bad.
They did it the way they were supposed to. If it came out like that. Listen, let me go back to what I was saying, Spider. I
Mm-hmm.
think Marvel's doing this. I think they did it on purpose. I think they said I don't think it was cockiness. I think it was we have the ability to take a few L's. Because again, how else can you do it? They're not test running, doing small secret screenings. They're in the real time developing. And when you take all your toys and you pour it out on the floor, guess what happens? You
You get a big
start
fucking
to,
mess.
well, that's true, but then you start to clean it up. And it wasn't until someone started cleaning it up when we started to put these things together and understand that Thanos is a threat. Because before, if you ask me, I think there's concepts that the MCU does.
Mm-hmm.
First concept was to introduce you, not the first movie, not the first thing that they did, because they introduced you to the tech side with Iron Man. Since they said he's the start of the MCU, really it was Howard the Duck, but you could say Blade was what
Well, I
brought all
mean,
the attention.
they were the start of Marvel movies, but Iron Man was the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's when they
Sure,
started
yeah, let's go
connecting
with that.
everything.
Yeah, let's go with that. So before the first day, there was a day before. So first they introduced you to the concept of secret soldier serum, not Captain America, but secret soldier serum, because Captain America has super soldier serum, Bucky has super soldier serum, and everything after that was from the super soldier serum program, or trying to replicate it or duplicate it,
Mhm.
which is how we got John Walker, which is how we got a version of Incredible Hulk, which off the She Hulk, and eventually going to be Red Hulk. But we also got Blonsky, the Abomination. We also got the leader.
Right.
All that from that Hulk blood. But again, they were trying to replicate, and this is go back in the MCU. They said they were trying to replicate the super soldier serum. So now that we have that concept, then we fast forward to the stones, Infinity Stones. So understand that these little stones control reality, time, souls, uh,
Face and
teleportation,
mind.
I guess, space, mind, make it work. Yeah. Sound like Captain Planet. So
I mean,
you got
essentially.
these you got these stones, and I want you to know that even if you don't understand any of that, just know when you get them all together, you can have your magic wish, kind of like Dragon Balls. You get all the Dragon Balls together, you can wish for whatever you want. This purple grimace looking guy is after the stones, and he wants half of everybody to go away. Oh no, what is that? That is an immediate threat. We need to get the Avengers. So now it's the Avengers. Before that, it was Loki, but we just talked about Loki. He was lashing out. But the overall bad guy behind Loki was Thanos, because we wanted to introduce the stone. So basically, what am I saying is, Spider, for some saying this, Mr. VIP, Frankie Washington, in that mess, when someone starts to clean it up, then Thor: The Dark World don't look that bad, because we're referencing that to take you on this journey to make something triumphant, right?
So you're
But we
saying
couldn't
that
get there without the mess. We
so
had to have the mess.
Okay, so you're saying that Avengers Infinity War and Endgame were to clean up the messes of the first three phases?
Didn't you see how they started to bring in clean up plot points and timelines and not timelines, plot points and missing threads and
I mean, did they though? What do you think that they closed on, or what plot points do you think that they
Thor went back to be able to talk to his mother. He
right?
had an emotional trauma breakdown that he didn't go for the head the first time. He baggage, he gained weight, fat Thor. Still powerful Thor is a god, but
Mhm.
you know. The point of what I'm saying, I think they did that intentionally too, to drag heart and emotion from the past movies that we've seen. That we have to deal with some things that are not good. You have to deal with it. Okay, we have that, but we're gonna reference it, acknowledge it, and we're gonna move on. Done triumph. Dun, 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 dun. So they'll reference Moon Knight. They might reference the obscurity of a big crocodile lady standing up about the size of a pyramid eating souls. Moon Knight did not save the day at all in his own show. I just
No,
want
he
to
really
remind
didn't.
people of that. So they may reference that, just like in what in game, how they reference Scott calling Captain America Cap when Hope called Captain Cap. Small little reference.
Right.
But if you didn't see the Ant Man, then you would have missed it. But were they the best movies at the point in time? Uh-uh. Over time, they kind of weaved it in. And I think it worked before. I think it's going to work again. You'll see. You'll see right now with this show, Loki, how they're going to start because they have carte blanche. They can go anywhere in time, talk to anyone they need to talk to, and pull out essentially everything that they want to do before the soft reset.
So
It's genius, man.
do you think that at some point throughout Loki we're going, well, season 2 of Loki, we're going to get Loki or someone from the TVA going to talk to an earlier version of some Avenger that we've seen, or a future version of some Avenger that we've seen?
Now, I don't work at Marvel, Spider, so I want you to know I can't be
I
absolutely
think that if you
certain when I
did, we
say
wouldn't be
this.
doing this
I would
podcast.
be fired immediately. Uh, I will say this. I think it all depends on real life situations.
Mhm.
Here's why. We already seen that of recent, for those who don't know, here's a real spoiler, that they're taking Daredevil down from its release because they want to work on the show. So, in having all these toys on the floor, like you said, it's going to have to get to a point you can't really do solo movies anymore. You can't really do origins without. It's kind of like the boys. Remember we talked about the boys, like Gen V and
Diabolical.
Diabolical. It's all in the same boys universe. You still see the same promotions: the Turbo Rush drink, the Lady Maeve lasagna, um, because it's all it's all connected. So Marvel is going to have to get to a point that it's like that. That you're watching somebody else's show, maybe Jessica Jones, and Spider Man swings by.
Well, don't you think that
Well, not
we've
Spider Man because
already
they still don't have those rights. But
don't you think we've already gotten that with Miss Marvel? Because it's firmly planted in the MCU to where it's a TV show and it's referencing movie characters. So we get Kamala, and she's the biggest Miss Marvel fan, to the point to where she goes to, an Avengers convention. So where you have other, people dressed up as different Avengers superheroes. So we're firmly living in the MCU, in this universe where other characters are being referenced. So I mean, as far as
But then they say Miss Marvel is gonna be a linchpin going forward into this. Isn't that the reason why they made her a mutant? So she could be the first. Well, she's not the first.
She's not the first, and I
Technically,
mean because
technically, Namor is older than her.
I don't know, and that's what I was saying. That's how I don't know how they're going to move forward with introducing mutants, introducing the X-Men and the rest of their types of mutants into the MCU, because now we have Kamala is technically a mutant. Namor has said that he was a mutant. And so how do we, because again, going back to, everything that's been happening in New York, the things that happen in California, everything that's been happening all over the world, and if you have an existence where mutants are in the general public, you mean to tell me that not one single mutant had the inkling to say, I have powers, I can do something about this? Like not one of them wants to stand up and be a hero. And
Oh, I wouldn't
so,
say that.
well, what I'm saying is that for the MCU to just go and say, oh, well, mutants have always been here, it begs the explanation as to, well, why haven't we seen anybody? Because if anybody's read any X-Men comics, they watched any of the X-Men shows, seen X-Men movies, you have mutants that have physical deformities. You have mutants that are different
Mm-hmm.
colors. You have mutants
Mm-hmm.
that have extra
They
appendages, have tails. So
look like Rick and
these
Morty over
but
there.
these types of mutants would not be able to go out in the general public and not have a spectacle be made of them, or some type of report like, oh, well, there's, especially after the alien invasion of New York, you see a mutant, you see Kurt Vonner, Nightcrawler walking around somewhere, somebody sees a blue person with a tail, they might think, okay, well, this is another alien, are we being invaded again? you know and
About the scrolls.
exactly, I mean, that's, I'm not going back there. I'm not, but in the sense, it kind of does play into that too, because at the end of Secret Invasion, the reaction from the general public to just start, flat out killing people in the streets, that could be, you had the Chitauri invasion in 2012, you had the invasion of Thanos in 2018, and the snap and the erasure of half of the universe. So people are shell shocked right now, and so they see an alien and they're like, okay, well, I have to do something because I don't want everything that's happened already to happen again. And I mean, even with the Dark Elves in Thor: The Dark World, they were, flying through London. And there was a whole bunch of shit
Yeah.
that went on there that also never got talked about. There was never any other Easter eggs like in other different movies where we saw Easter eggs in She-Hulk about, Tiamat, coming out of the ocean and everything. But there was never any type of Easter egg saying, uh, there were clear physical like wormholes in London where you could peer into different realms,
Realms.
and nobody wrote an article about that. Nobody said anything about that. You had a literal dark elf ship like crashing
Hey,
into the whatever monument
if you
or
really want to
university they
talk
were
about
there.
it, what happened to that big lizard thing that was running around at the end of the movie?
Was that the Frost Beast?
Yeah, it was a frost beast. It was
Then
running around
the explanation
London.
the explanation of that was that that's the that's where they got the DNA in Secret Invasion from that Frost Beast. So apparently Shield captured that Frost
Killed
Beast and
it.
it Harvard. I don't know if they killed it, but I know they harvested its DNA.
I
But I mean,
think
under the direction of Nick Fury, I seriously doubt that they would kill it because he might try to figure out a way to use it as a weapon.
we all know who Nick Fury was. Notice what I said.
But anyway, before
I think they got a plan though, Spider. I think they
no,
got a plan.
I'm not
I think
I'm not
they're
doubting that at
I think
all.
Loki is the pin. that's going to start to weed through these little storylines, and it's all going to make. It's not going to be picture perfect. It's not going to be tied up nicely and done neatly. There'll still be unanswered questions and plot threads, but they'll get to that in like phase nine.
I don't know.
So
I think that we're not going to start getting all of these storylines pulled together until.
no, they just coming off the strike. They just again, it's gonna take time because
No, I'm not saying that it's. I'm not saying
they
it's going
want to do it
to
right.
take
That's why they
forever.
canceled Daredevil because they want to do it right, right? So they want to.
Now they do. They weren't concerned
Well,
about that like a year ago.
it was under a different direction. It's a different regime, but the same regime.
I don't know.
From what I
I
understand,
don't know.
the orders were given, and then it was like a pipe bomb. Like you do this, and then they left, and then they started doing what you said, and then the person that was there got the blame, and then you came back and like, what? What are y'all doing? Don't do that. Stop doing that. What you said, shut up. I'm here to save everybody. Not like Sinestro, not Sinestro Syndrome. What's one on Incredibles?
It was
The bad
syndrome.
guy. Yeah, him. That's what's happening right now. You've been syndrome.
You know how that makes a connection. But anyway, we've been talking
It's all
more about
Disney.
the MCU. Yeah, but still. But what did you think? What did you think about the first two episodes of Loki?
Hey man, Loki is here to save the MCU. I'm here for it. It's the best thing on Disney Plus right now. Best. I don't know. I didn't watch anything else on Disney Plus. Loki, Loki is the only thing that is worth watching right now. It's making sense. It's good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Visuals have always been impeccable. It looks like it's out of time, yet and still old fashioned. Like, come on, man. It looks like industrial factory working typewriter. Just you got to walk this letter all the way down to acquisitions. You can't
Right.
even just, you
Send
know
an
what I mean?
email.
It's like
Yeah.
what don't exist.
So
Not even thinking about it.
we've also gotten new characters. We got Obi, we got Ouroboros, played by Kiwi Kwan. We've gotten X5, we got General Docs. We have more kind of a more fleshed out personality for B-15 now. And we're gonna get more
Love that
Renslayer
for him.
later on in the season. But how do you feel about the introduction of the new characters and the role, that some of the older characters? Because we're even getting more from Mobius now. Because before we had Loki, he was just basically kind of going after Sylvie. So after a certain point, it was really just the two of them. But we're getting Mobius more involved. We're getting Casey more involved.
I was just about to
And
say that. Casey, a little tech genius. Y'all was sleeping on Casey
they didn't want
because
to
his
give Casey
shirt
the credit
leaking
leaking the ink,
ink.
right? But how do you feel about the addition of the new characters and the expanded role that some of our older characters are getting?
It's world building. You can't have a successful show without doing that world building. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get more back. So I see this is why you can't do 6, 8 episodes. You got to do like real seasons because you can get that backstory of what Casey life was like before he joined the TVA or what B-15 life was. Look at all the crew and figure out what the main characters that we involved with and see what their lives were before the TVAs, because the TVA is the bad guy here, but yet and still, because of all that, what we just said, out of date, out of time instruments, there's not new thinking. The multiverse is in the flux. It's
Right.
all over the place because what it is, the generator, whatever it is, the little things that take the chaos of the multiverse and incorporates it into the sacred
Oh,
timeline.
the loom.
The loom, yeah, you knew it. What? Why you ain't? You should have put it in the
I
comments.
mean,
You seen me struggle. The loom, right? Can't handle that. So OB is trying to make moderations or a better loom. That will be the only other answer, a big enough loom to handle all of the multiversal potential nexus events that takes you off your timeline or makes a new multiverse. That tech don't exist. So these branches gotta be pruned so the sacred timeline can exist. So that's the responsibility of the TVA. But yet and still, each timeline is billions, if not trillions, of lives.
Right.
So it's one of those paradoxes. It's you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. What do you do? That's what makes the show Chef's Kiss. Because it's not just about punching, it's not just about shooting arrows or stabby. It's about what do we do? Because if we don't prune these timelines, we could lose everything. And he who remains even said that. Said, I've tried them all. This is the best case scenario. And now you're seeing these things play out because it's like lose it all or it's an incursion. You either lose one world or lose both of them. Who wrote
So
that? That's horrible.
here's here's my question. So we get that from He Who Remains that said that this is the best possible outcome. This is the best way
Oh,
to
you
do
think he's
these
lying,
things.
huh?
Well, I'm not lying in the sense that he wasn't being entirely truthful. It may have been the
Oh, me
best
too.
it may have been the best outcome, but what if it was just the best outcome for only him? To where he could
Mm.
control the sacred timeline so he
Fine
didn't have
her,
to deal with his variants.
which brings me back to the question that I asked you before about him having a plan beyond the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, he does, and Ravonna Renslayer is involved.
Right. We have to find out exactly how. But I'm
Because
not going to ask the question because we're only 2 episodes in. And I would like to save this question for the end of the season because,
how
like I
many
said,
I mean, how many episodes they got?
that
They
is
doing us
a
like they did us the first season.
good question. I'm going to look it up right now.
MC. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, I
But
said it.
no, just like I was saying
Ooh,
with Gen V,
ooh,
you know,
ooh.
I don't want to say that the show is super and then it comes to the end and we get those last couple
Oh
of
yeah, I
episodes.
understand what you said. Yeah, yeah. You know they can. Hey, this is Disney Plus. They have botched endings before.
So we are going
You
to
know.
get 6 more episodes.
Mm. So it's 8 episodes.
No, well, 6 more episodes in season 2. So it's going to be a total of 12 episodes across the 2 seasons.
Oh,
So it's
oh,
6 episodes for this season as well.
oh.
But the thing about it is they did it well in season 1. Even though it was 6 episodes, it was
There's
still
more. There's more going on now. The first season was discovery.
right.
Second season, we're taking action. So there's more going. You needed the 12 episode.
But
Oh
we
my
weren't going to get
goodness.
12 episodes. I can tell you that right now.
Listen, this is Disney and Marvel. They can afford time.
It's not about them not being able to afford time. We
They
already
can
know that they're
afford to do
not
a
paying
lot.
actors, so of course they could afford it.
But strike's over, baby. Go.
No,
It's time to go back to work.
the writers' strike is over. The actors are still on strike.
Now, isn't this interesting? I might be speaking out of context because I'm not a writer, a striker, or an activist or an actor. But isn't it interesting how the writers went on strike, then the actors followed to show support, and then it's like, wait a minute. we could get in on this too. But the actors were already paid very well.
Not
Very,
necessarily.
very well. Not all of
No,
them.
no, because you
Not
have
all of them.
a lot of gig actors, and what the thing about it is, and one of the biggest reasons one of the biggest reasons that they are striking is because these movie studios are now talking about they want to take digital copies of these actors
Mm,
and own licenses to those digital copies to where
mm.
they can use them from here in perpetuity without any compensation
Oh,
to the actors.
well, see, I did not know that at all. Yeah, that's definitely a strike. I want to be an actor now, so I could strike against that.
Because I mean, I can't remember which actor that said it, but it's basically like, you have beliefs, you have morals of things that you absolutely will not
Wouldn't want
do,
to do,
right?
and then
And
they use
they
your
take that,
likeness
they
to do
take
those
use your
things.
likeness, they'll make you do things that you wouldn't do, make you say things that you wouldn't say, and technology advances enough, you may not be able to distinguish the AI versus the actual person. So,
Dave Chappelle called it long time ago when he did the skit on R. Kelly. He said that was digital urine. That ain't even happened. Dave Chappelle ahead of his time.
they've said that plenty of times that he was ahead of his time. But yeah, but like I said, I'm not gonna call it because we only got 6 episodes, and as
We'll
much
see.
faith as I have in the show, I will still hold reservations
That's the ending
because
right there. That's the ending. I'm watching it.
MCU still has the propensity to kind of drop the ball in the last episode. So
Mm.
holding my opinions on what I think about the show as a whole on whether it's super or not. I don't know if you feel the same way.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. It's not fair to give it a partial super. I don't know if we ever gave anything a partial anything.
Well,
So
we
no.
when we did Moon Knight, we did rank each episode as whether it was super or not, and I think we did the same for Miss Marvel as well.
Want to
But
do that
no,
here?
like you
Is that
said, no,
what
no,
we're
no,
doing
no,
here?
no, that's not what we're doing here because one of the things that you said, and I believe I can't remember, it might have been Secret Invasion. What you said is that you get the first 2 episodes, even we still got these first 2 episodes weekly, but oh, you said it about Gen V. You get the first 3 episodes, you give the audience that taste of what the show is going to be about. The first episode, you get the
Mm-hmm.
introduction. Second episode, you
Mm-hmm.
get conflict. Third episode, you start getting into the details of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the season. So you have a good idea of what direction you're going to go into. And like you said, you can't say whether the show is going to be super or not the entire season off those first 3 episodes because they have the ability to be able to elevate what they've already shown, or they have the
Mm-hmm.
ability, like we said, to kind of drop the ball and not stick the landing for the end of the season. So I think that moving forward, when we're doing these weekly reviews on shows, if it's not something like Diabolical, that's anthological, where every episode is kind of standalone by
I
itself,
heard somebody use that big word.
but
Wow.
I think that yeah, these shows where it's a full season, 6 episodes. But when we know that there's an overarching story that we want to tell, I don't think we'll rank it as super for each episode. I think when we get to the end of the season, we'll talk about which episodes may have been better than the other ones. But then we'll give the overall season a grade of super or not super.
Come closer to the screen. Come close. Look this way. That's Marvel dropping the ball right there. Fumble the ball. They dropped it right at the goal line. Fumble the ball. They
Fumble the
know how to
ball.
do it. They'll do it to you.
They've done
Don't
it.
think that they won't do
I feel like
it.
they've done it more often than they haven't.
All the faithful. Just gonna throw it
Not all of Phase 4, because I mean,
okay.
WandaVision and Loki was still part of Phase 4.
Thank heavens for that. Thank Odin for that.
It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad.
Wasn't all good either.
It wasn't all good. It definitely wasn't all good.
Wasn't
But
it definitely wasn't all super, I can tell you that.
We
Yeah,
already
like,
have plenty of episodes talking about all of the other films and TV shows in Phase 4. But if you want to take a look at those, you can check those out as well. But let us know what you thought about the first couple of episodes of Loki, and follow us along as we go through
deuce,
this
deuce.
journey of reviewing season 2. But let us know what you thought about the episodes. Let us know what you thought about this episode. And just remember, if you liked it, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the
Do
channel,
that.
hit the bell so you
Do
can be
that too.
notified when we have new episodes that come out. If you want the audio
Definitely
version
do
of
that.
the podcast, just search for All Things Super on your favorite podcast streaming platform. And if you want to follow us on social media, just go ahead and click that link in the description below.
I'm sorry. I told you, if you guys follow me, I'm now telling what you go see. So just come with an open mind and sense of humor.
Perfect disclaimer.
I'm on that thing. I'm on it.
You on something?
Pause. I heard it when so they got it back to me in edit.
Edit. Yeah, we got to reshoots. We got to send it back for a reshoot. Rewind
there
it.
you go.
We got to
That's
reshoot.
the MCU way.
But thank you.
That's
all.
why you shouldn't follow me at all.
That's a good
right
indication.
There you go.
But thank you all so much for joining us this episode. We appreciate all the love and support, and we will be back for the next one. But remember, until then, keep being super.